Okay, so what are some? Thank you, God. What are some of your observations? Some of the things that stood out to you? Yes.
I thought it was interesting how I never really thought about the significance of the father of Alexander and Rufus, or that part. Obviously, looking back, they wouldn't have included Alexander and Rufus in there unless they had some sort of significance in the church. Because if it was just a random guy, they would have been like, oh yeah, some dude killed Jesus. But obviously, Alexander and Rufus were in the church, like active in the church, and probably
Right. So if you're going to make up, I'm not saying you're doing this, right? But let's say you get into a little bit of trouble, or maybe you have a fender bender or whatever, and you decide you are not going to tell the truth. Are you going to give a detailed account? No. No. I don't know how it happened. I just came out of the store and it was like you're not going to say, well, see, I was on court. You're not going to do that, right? You're going to give this sort of like macro answer. So many details that could be proven false, but they haven't. Yes.
I was going to say how many details there actually are, and they could only have those details if it was from eyewitness and they just memorized it. Like they saw it firsthand and it stuck with them.
Yes.
going along with that, they talked about like the counter productivity of the Gospels. If you're trying to portray Jesus as this Savior of the world, that's the Son of God, why in the world would you include the part where it says, Father, why did you say that? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. It adds to the realness.
Right. I don't know if I've ever told you my take on that, but someday I will. Yeah.
I like how it says you can't have a personal relationship with someone if you don't have contradiction.
Right. Yeah. The differences in the Bible make it more believable, not less believable. Because if you're making something up, if it's a conspiracy, y'all get your stories together, right? Years and years ago, there was a teacher at Low North, and there were these 4 boys that came in the first hour late, and they were known for being not the best boys. And they came in and said, "Oh, we're so sorry. We had a flat tire. That's why we're late." And the teacher, with her, teacher spidey sense, realized something. She said, "That's great. That's fine. That's great. But you did miss a pop quiz. So sit down." And she had them sit down. There's just one question. Which tire? You don't give details, right? And you get your story. And it's not a solution, right? Okay, was that you?
Like why would they go along with it? Why would they include female roles, apostles?
In that day and age, the last people you would put at the tomb, at the first witness of the resurrection, a woman. You don't, or women. You wouldn't do that. They weren't even allowed to testify in court. It was and what did the disciples do? So the women stay with Jesus. The women and John are at the foot of the cross. What does everybody else do?
Run.
They run. They turn tail and run. They're afraid. This is not the story you tell if you're making up a story. What else stood out to you? Yes.
The timing was perfect for it to not be legend because it was like almost right after the timing the spread of the Gospels was right after. So the writing is too early for it to be legend because they have to have like time to think and time to
Yeah. If it's a true story, you can't have anyone that's still alive, or even anyone that's alive that was told the story. It takes generations for a falsehood to come into being. Because everybody who knew the truth and everybody they told, and that's not what we see. Some of the now there is a gap between the events and the writing, but it's not a large gap. At some point, I think what they realized was, oh wait, when we die, the story dies with us. And so then in the like some of it now, some of the New Testament. I'm not talking about Old Testament. Could have been as early as the mid 40s, which is like 13 years away, and you guys can remember 13 years ago. Certainly I can. I lived 50 years ago. Yeah, there is a gap, but the longest gap, and I just read this morning. I just read 1 John 1 this morning, and it said that it would be no later than the 90s AD. Now we know that John lived a very, very long time, and he was a very young man when he was following Christ. So that would be the latest that any of the books of the New Testament is somewhere in the 60-ish years, right? After, which that's me, right? That's my lifetime. What else? Yes.
I don't know if they said this in the chapter or not, but the fact that there's 4 gospels and they're not all the same also points to like the accuracy of Jesus' story, because if they were all 4 of the gospels said the exact same thing and included the same details, then it would be believable that they just got together and made the story up. But each person like took away something different from Jesus' miracles or his parables and stuff like that. And even if there are like small differences in the story, it's still proof that everyone will be there
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because I think what it told you is that legend doesn't give details, right? So what are some of those details that are included that only an eyewitness would know? Feeding of the 5,000, okay. What about that?
5,000.
Okay, 5,000. It was more than 5,000, but I think even more, how many fish and loaves? Right, that's a detail. That's an eyewitness detail. What else? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the question, you don't notice those things if you're not an eyewitness.
And that was lowered from the roof.
Yeah, and what about that?
But there were many people that they had to go on the roof.
Yeah, so many people they had to do it. What else? Yeah.
The amount of time when they're fishing is exactly
Yeah. And in my Bible, if I had my personal Bible here, eyewitness detail, and you see it all. And so now as you read the Gospels, you'll notice that. Right? You'll see, oh wow, that's a detail. Malchus's ear, and knowing his name. Malchus's ear.
Yeah, one of the legends give like quotes.
Right, exactly. Right, yeah.
When Jesus wrote in the dust.
When Jesus wrote in the dust. Yeah. It doesn't tell us
Yeah, you never
what he
know what it
wrote,
was.
but that he did. So, yeah, really good thoughts. Yeah.
And
Yeah, well, Jesus' parables, that they remember them, that was his teaching. I don't know if those are, I guess that would be eyewitness details, because they all disciples of any rabbi memorized the And that's why we can have it. They memorized his teaching. And so that's how we have it. Yeah.
Of the many fish.
Yes.
Could you even say like the detail that Jesus had to get in a boat to preach to people?
Right. All things that you if you're making it up, all things that you not only don't know, you don't include. And legend is far more macro and detailed. Anything else? Yes.
There's no writings from the same time that like contradict what
Yeah.
like no one in 38 years like, yeah, Jesus didn't actually know.
Yeah, and to the contrary, we have early attestation that Jesus. When I was your age, there was this whole thing like, did Jesus ever exist? Like, was there really a Jesus? And there were people that were saying he was just a made-up figure. Nobody, maybe way fringe people say that, but nobody's saying that. Nobody legit is saying that. There's too much evidence for the existence of Jesus, and we can get. And I think it probably told you this in your book over in Keller's book that we have people outside of Christendom and sometimes his enemies telling the same basic story about who Jesus was. Josephus was not a believer. He was born Jewish, but he ended up being the historian for the Roman Empire, and so he was probably a pagan. And he tells the same basic storyline as the Gospels about Jesus and others as well. Yeah.
This isn't exactly about the Gospels, but the Bible in general. There are stories outside of the Jewish community about like Adam and Eve and Noah and the Ark and the Tower of Babel that like confirm it even more. There are some details that are twisted because of different cultures, but there are accounts of there was a woman and a bad fruit, there was a man with a boat and no rain before and stuff like that.
Right, but that is outside the boundaries of what we're talking about because we're just talking about the gospel of Christ, this history of Christ with this. I shouldn't put it that way. I'd like for you to stick with the truthfulness of the veracity of the New Testament. I agree with that, and I believe that, but I think it gets convoluted when you throw in that kind of stuff. So we're just concentrating on the New Testament and the Gospels. Yes.
We talked about how with other religions, it's when after they died, they proclaim their leader as God or whatever. But Jesus like proclaimed his deity from the get-go, like immediately, and people worship him as God, like they said in Philippians 2, they're worshiping him as God, like from the moment that he died.
Right away. After the resurrection. They were hiding. But yeah, after the resurrection and definitely after Pentecost. They were filled with the Spirit. And they all went to their deaths proclaiming Christ. All of the disciples did. And only one died a natural death, which is John. But he was horribly persecuted. At one point, church history tells us that he was boiled in oil. So he suffered greatly. And they all did. They were all persecuted. And all but John were executed. Did they renounce the faith? Not one. Not one. If it's a lie, okay, so let's say, I'm going to pick on Laura, because she wouldn't lie. So if she lied to me and I'm calling her on the lie, and I say, okay, I don't know, shoot you in I don't know, or I'm going to tell your parents is probably all I need from you, right? Are you going to stick to your story? No, you're not. Yep, I made that story up. And none of it. I mean, what should I guess? So, yeah, that's good. Okay, so, anything else? Anything else before we get the switch on? Okay, great. So, take out your big atheist book. Pause this for a second.